Perhaps the biggest complaint I hear when it comes to the television show From is the lack of answers. I'll admit it that when I first started watching the show, I feared they were making the same mistake that Lost did. They kept putting in random mysterious stuff with no intention of giving us answers. But Season 3 gave me hope. I started to see how stuff set up all the way in Season 1 were being answered in Season 3. The bottle tree's a great example. Now that got me thinking, what about all the other stuff that hasn't been answered? You could honestly do an individual video about each of these questions, and I've also just come out with a Man in Yellow video that you'll want to check out, so this video is more of a reminder than a deep dive into each one. If there happens to be a topic you guys really want me to do an in-depth video on, please let me know in the comments, and if I have time, I'll give it a look. Remember back in Season 1, this guy smashed by a boulder in the root cellar? We haven't seen him since. We know that this root cellar is the end location for a certain faraway tree. During the night of the Colony House massacre, Julie goes through it and arrives here. Since this is a vision of Jade's, it doesn't necessarily mean the poor man was crushed by a boulder that followed him through a faraway tree. However, Henry remarks that larger things in this world have gone missing, such as the motel. There's a sign, but no building. It begs the question if faraway trees are just the beginning when it comes to traveling throughout this world. Could entire buildings get sucked into the ground and end up somewhere else completely? Speaking of these trees, we really don't know how they operate. When Tabitha went through one at the end of Season 2, she arrived near the lighthouse, but when Dale did it in Season 3, he ended up in the side of a pool. It would appear they could change where you end up, and this could have something to do with how Victor says the trees move. The lighthouse is also another unexplained mystery. It's in the middle of a forest with seemingly no water around it, leading me to believe instead of guiding ships to land, it's guiding souls to salvation. Inside this lighthouse are numbers etched in the wall, and if you've seen my season ending video, you'll know I think these are dates in which different versions of the story started and stopped. But just how the boy in white pushing Tabitha out of the tower resulted in her waking up in Camden, Maine, coincidentally the same town Victor's dad is from, remains unclear. In Season 1, we're introduced to these large rocks very much out of place in this flat field. Similar rocks, this time with red pigment, are seen near the old settlement. I'm curious if they have anything to do with the rock slabs the Ankui children were sacrificed on. These red rocks are also where we see young Tabitha, or at least the version of her she had in a dream as a child. With her old clothing here, we can deduce this wasn't a dream, rather a real memory of the spirit that now inhabits her. This old settlement is filled with tons of mystery. If this town is simply a story told over and over again, it's possible this settlement was the town several cycles ago. We still don't know just what exactly these totems on the outskirts are supposed to do, but usually things like this are used to ward off something evil. And why is Randall, who to our knowledge has never visited the old settlement, carving replicas of them? Randall for sure is someone reincarnated, and that will be a part of the fun of Season 4, trying to guess which townspeople come from past versions of the story. Then there's this mysterious thing that pounded on the cabins at night. Was it a creature or something else? And how did the food problem get magically solved with all these crops, especially with no one around to tend to them? Most likely it has something to do with the entity wanting to give the townspeople hope, so it feeds off of it. Season 3 gives us brief glimpses into how the story of this town originated. A group of couples decided to sacrifice their children in return for immortality, but the specifics of who promised them this, when, and how it all played out is still a big question mark. Smiley's rebirth is also mired in mystery. He was killed by Boyd's blood, which was infected by a man named Martin. We still don't know how exactly Boyd was transported to Martin's dungeon. Is he a story walker like Julie? Is it this place, or did it have something to do with the torch he lit? Either way, Martin infected Boyd, saying, "My blood is your blood." Boyd uses this blood, which reacts violently to Smiley, resulting in his death. Speaking of Martin, he's a whole mystery to himself. He doesn't know who Boyd is, but somehow knows Julie, and that Boyd killed his own wife. When Christy performs an autopsy on Smiley, it appears a tooth is retrieved. The only other character besides Fatima who we've seen lose a tooth is this corpse found in the root cellar. However, that may be from decomposition. But who is this guy? I've seen a lot of people guessing it's Jade based on the similarity between his outfit in season 1 and the beard, but if you look closely, this is a different shirt. Also bonus points if you caught Jade wearing a similar looking bracelet to the one Tabitha and Miranda made for their husbands. A nice nod to the eventual realization that Jade and Tabitha are spiritual husband and wife of sorts. Smiley's body ends up erupting in cicadas. This is a very interesting choice in insects since cicadas spend years underground and undertake a metamorphosis of sorts, shedding their exoskeleton in a process akin to rebirth. Smiley will literally be reborn underground. When these cicadas enter into the bodies of Julie, Randall, and Marielle, these bodies are put into a dreamlike state where Boyd will end up destroying the music box which releases them from their slumber. This whole thing has never been explained, nor how the cicadas' choice of victims relate to the lullaby. They touch, they break, they steal. However, you could make an argument Randall breaks, Marielle steals, and Julie touches. We also don't know the extent of this trauma. It's so bad for Randall he almost gives himself electroshock therapy. However, Marielle does everything in her power not to talk about it. I do think something could be dormant in these guys that hasn't left them. In season 3, Victor talks about how the boy in white tasked him with gathering items from the dead after he awoke the night of the town massacre, of which Victor was the only survivor. Was it the man in yellow who did this? Did he do it by himself? Was it the creatures? It seems as though the defining event that restarts this story is a big massacre such as this one, which may explain the last date etched in the lighthouse is 1978. We don't know much about Victor's life during this post-massacre period, which is a bit of a red flag. He didn't even have a talisman to keep him safe. In the wake of this attack, the boy in white tasked Victor with collecting items of significance from the townspeople, and we'll also see that the monsters themselves hoard specific items down in the tunnels, so obviously something is going on here. This monster, who is somehow in human form during the day, tells Victor he needs to stop coming down into the tunnels. Just how many times has Victor been down there, and for what purpose? There's also the disappearance of Victor's sister, Eloise. According to Victor, he found pieces of her, but she was so small he couldn't really tell. With Victor telling us Eloise was a master at hide and seek, I can pretty much guarantee we'll see this character in the future. I tend to believe she's somewhere in from, unless she made it back home like Tabitha but lost her memory. One of the oddest characters introduced near the end of season 2 was the Kimono Woman. Not everyone can see her, and she has the ability, unlike the monsters, to enter into homes that have talisman on them. The talisman themselves are a mystery. All we know is that Boyd found them in a strange hut, and they somehow prevent the creatures from entering a building. The Kimono Woman appears to be some sort of undead midwife, helping the monsters bring back Smiley. Speaking of giving birth, we still don't know why nothing showed up on Fatima's sonogram, although we know whatever entity has a control over this town can manipulate electronics like radios, lights, and jukeboxes. Rarely mentioned since season 1 is the flight of the Chromonocle. Its tale of a lost dragon needing to find a map to get home is likely a metaphor for our townspeople struggling to get back to the real world. Who was talking to Sarah in season 1? Remember, she had "kill the boy" etched on her skin at one point. She does say they are voices, plural. It's not just one person. They also had her draw this picture which ended up being a candy bar Father Cautry drew. So the voices know things similar to the man in yellow. Back to the creatures, we still don't know why they wear period clothing, but if the previous town story ran from 1931 to 1978, these could be characters from that time period. And what about this guy who remembers Julie in season 1? How did he know who Julie was? We'll see him briefly in the Smiley birthing scene. There's also this really interesting theory that the night the creatures tried to get into Jim's flipped over camper, they say lines like "row, row, row your boat" and "don't let them go into the water." This could tie into the boat theory, where one of the ways to get out of the town is with a boat. Coincidentally, one is missing from the Polaroid the Kimono Woman took, and we don't really know why. We also don't know how this town chooses who finds the tree in the road, and how everyone comes from all these spots across only the United States. Accompanying this tree are a murder of crows, which could just be symbolism, but one flies into Colony House as Fatima is about to get her tarot cards read by Tilly. We never did get to see what these cards said. Tilly is also a huge mystery, and I don't think we're done with her either. I believe she was previously in this town and was looking for a way back in order to help Fatima in her journey giving birth to Smiley. We see her dancing for joy as she arrives back in town, and she is awfully helpful during Fatima's pregnancy and sees no problem with her eating literal rotting food. There are also a slew of dead characters which somehow linger around town, visiting different characters when convenient, from the German Shepherd in Season 1, Father Cautry, and even Tom the bartender. Jade said energy here seems to defy the first law of thermodynamics, and instead of energy transferring from one thing to another, here it lingers. The whole idea of reincarnation can also be further explored. Characters like Elgin share certain commonalities like a missing eye with the Civil War soldier and pioneer. This would suggest Elgin is the reincarnation of this character stretching back hundreds of years. Who moved Sarah and Boyd's tent in their journey to the lighthouse in Season 1, and what was this forest of spider webs? Ethan refers in one of his dreams of a spider descending from the ceiling, and he also has a drawing of a spider. This is something that's yet to be revealed. There are some interesting threads, like that time Boyd tried to create a creature trap, and how Randall said the creatures follow a fixed pattern every night. These seem to have fallen by the wayside. We haven't even begun to explore the significance of Miranda's paintings. They seem to depict events that have happened in the past and will continue to happen in the future as the story repeats. Why was Acosta's first name hidden for so long? In the finale, we learn it's Danny. To my knowledge, there's only ever been one mention of a Danny in this show, and that person was the driver of the car that fell into the motel pool. With the Ankui kids having successfully alerted Jade and Tabitha to their past, will we see any more of them? And what will happen after the events of the finale? Most of the town doesn't know that Fatima killed Tilly, while Boyd and Sarah literally committed torture. What consequences will they face going forward? Now, those were the unanswered questions I could think of. Which ones did I miss, and which ones are you most looking forward to getting answered? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember, Daddy loves you very much.